Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Real Estate Mogul MD. My name is Bob Bosick. I'm a retired C-suite executive, and I have the privilege of speaking with medical professionals, high-income earners, and investors. We are here today to share the real-world journeys along with the to-dos and, more importantly, the not-to-dos. It's my pleasure today. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with Dr. Martha Ayewah. She is opening a new private practice. She's a board certified cosmetic surgeon based in Manhattan with a general surgery background. She's the founder and CEO of Ayewah Aesthetics. And I'm just really excited to welcome you, Martha. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show today.
You're very welcome. I usually like to start at the beginning of somebody's career arc and go back to what really interested you about medicine, and when did you realize that was going to be your path?
Going all the way back to being a teenager, my dad and my older brothers are engineers, and I aspired to be like them. I love to build things and create things, and we were always doing projects together. And then I got to high school and realized that physics is not my strength and neither is math. And so I realized engineering might not be for me, but let me find something that's relatively similar. I'm from Nigeria, Nigerian background. You know, our parents always want us to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or something of the sort. And so I think my mom may have prodded me towards spending time with her physician friends who inspired me to look at that field. When I got to college, I spent a lot of time at the hospitals in Nigeria, in my city, and shadowed every single physician and learned what they did. And I realized that the surgeon was my favorite. It's like engineering of the body.
Yes, right.
Where you get to create and cut and build and fix immediately. So from that point on, I think I was 19 years old. I realized I wanted to be a surgeon and worked my way towards that.
Very interesting. I had a podcast earlier this week with a gentleman who thought he was going to be an engineer as well. He had two parents that were physicians, but he went for biomedical engineering. And this is the part that I found incredibly interesting. I didn't know you could do this. 90 units in, he went and did some research and realized he could challenge the MCATs and go to medical school without completing his bachelor's. And that's exactly what he did. He is probably one of only, I would say, a handful of people maybe that were able to get into medical school without completing their bachelor's degree and then went on to practice. It's a pretty interesting story, but he knew, and then he's created stuff with his engineering background. So it just made me think about that. So how long have you been out of residency?
I finished residency 2020. I completed a year-long fellowship in California.
Whereabouts?
Surgery. Inland Empire, Rancho Cucamonga.
I know the area well. I'm in Southern California today in a place called Newport Beach, which you probably know, having been in Rancho.
Beautiful weather.
Yes. They have the Loma Linda Medical Center up there in Loma Linda, and that's a nice place as well. Where specifically in Rancho Cucamonga were you?
Gosh, I have to remember now. It's been a minute.
Okay.
But
that's okay.
Working at Inland Cosmetic Surgery under Dr. Jacob Hayavi.
Gotcha.
So, he's faculty at Loma Linda, so he's definitely got a lot of roots there in California. But it was a great experience. And the moment that was over, came back to New York, got a job, and I love New York City.
There's a lot going on.
Yes, absolutely.
So why was becoming a doctor important to you?
I think every medical student and doctor will tell you, I want to help people. Mm-hmm. That's why we do what we do. But for me, I was interested in, the whole intellectual side of things, learning medicine, learning biology, learning the human body and what you can do to fix it. And then moving forward, getting through medical school and the rigors of that, and getting into residency, I started fine-tuning what it is that I love. What is it that I'm interested in? It's not just surgery. It's creative surgery. My parents will tell you that growing up as a child, I was pretty much all over the place. I wanted to be a dancer and an actor and a painter and a lot of creative aspirations. And I did a lot of creative projects just as a hobby. So realizing that you can do creative surgery, it's the best of both worlds. That is what cosmetic surgery is.
Yes.
Sculpting, you are creating, you are making a beautiful end product that your patient loves, but then you love and you're proud of.
Yes, absolutely. Where did you grow up in the United States?
I came to the United States to go to college. I grew up in Nigeria and the Netherlands in Europe, and went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas for undergrad, and then Fort Worth for medical school, and came to New York for my surgical training.
So English is a second language for you.
No, we speak English in Nigeria. It's
You do, because it's
a former British colony. I had a British accent when I moved to America.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I was going to say, it sounds like you were, raised in Washington or Oregon or someplace. There's no Manhattan, there's no British, there's nothing. Yeah, it is.
I perfected my generic American accent. I had to
You
develop it.
absolutely have. I would have never guessed that you were born and raised in another country or countries. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Across your journeys, what was the biggest challenge that you faced?
All of these journeys, there's been multiple challenges.
What was the biggest one, do you think, when you think about it? It was like, man, this is going to be tough.
There have been many, but I think that just having the tenacity and the perseverance to get through what it takes to achieve your dreams, that was the hardest thing. I am Christian by background, and, that was important. My faith journey was important to get me through. But one of the verses that I kind of hold on to is like, count it all joy when you're facing these trials so that you develop perseverance and character. So the biggest challenge for me was having the perseverance to keep going. The challenges I faced were multifaceted. Like, I faced challenges being an international student rather than an American. So I had to get various visas to go to different schools, or to get into my residency, they had to sponsor my visa. That was a challenge. I faced a challenge being female going into surgery. I faced a challenge being Black and a minority in a world that doesn't look like me. I find now that, yes, it was very difficult, but my patients are so appreciative to see a doctor that looks like them and represents them. And it really is a strength now. But going through training of over a decade, it really was a challenge. Just feeling.
How does that manifest itself? What does that look like? When you say I'm a woman, regardless of color, you're saying that as a woman and wanting to focus in and specialize in surgery, that there are issues, there are challenges, there are biases. And what does that look like? How does that manifest itself for you as a woman?
It is multifaceted, but I will say time has passed, and changes to the way that women are treated are generally moving in a positive direction. But you would find female surgeons 30 years ago, who were just blatantly treated badly and spoken to badly. 100 years ago, they weren't even allowed to train.
Right.
But now, where I am, what you notice is the way that you're treated while you're on call, the way that your colleagues might treat you. I had a colleague make a comment, "Don't get pregnant because I'm not going to cover your call." It's completely inappropriate, but it's the spoken and the unspoken.
Yeah.
You are weaker, you are less intelligent, you are unavailable because you're trying to be a mother, if that's even an aspiration. There's multiple articles out there that talk about female surgeons who have trouble with fertility because we wait so long to finish our training to even think about starting a family, because the work or the job environment is so hostile that you're not even allowed to consider it.
And you address those challenges. How did you handle them?
I don't have kids.
Yeah. But is it so common, and just it's almost to the point where you realize what's happening after you think about it, because it's just, or are you confronting the issue immediately?
I think it's difficult as a resident to confront the issue. You don't have a whole lot of power as a resident. You do what you're told to do. But what has happened is there is the Association of Women Surgeons. There are various groups that exist where women can get together and support one another. Mm-hmm. There really are some programs that, put it out there that they support having female residents, and that's excellent. But at the end of the day, it's up to you as a person to have the fortitude to go through it, to speak up for yourself rather than people assuming that you have no voice or assuming that you're timid, to step into a male-focused conversation and not take offense to some of the things that they say. I've had some attendings who are in their 60s or 70s or 80s. Oh, well, you do okay for a girl. Wow. You're just a homemaker. I don't know why you're here. Like nowadays, sure, political correctness.
When you're describing the older generation, my father went to medical school. It was interesting. There was an age bias back in the 70s. He was struggling. He went to law school first and then decided he wanted to go to medical school after law school. And by then he was 27. And then there was right at a cutoff point where if you were older than that, you were not getting into medical school. But one of the things that, has me, and I've talked about this with several other folks, back then there was an arrogance and an ego that went with all doctors, young or old back then, that, you just, as I reflect on it now as an adult and think back about the situations, it was just, almost a God-like attitude and a figure. But it's this new generation, you and others. There is this humility that is different. And I was talking to another physician, a lady, who said that when she came out of residency and first went to a practice with 3 physicians that were they were in their 60s at the time, and this was in 2000, so this is 23 years ago, and they were in their 60s back then. And she remembers her first a couple of days walked in, one of the older physicians called her into the office and said, and there was patients outside. And he said, have a seat and read the paper. She goes, but there's patients out there. He goes, yeah, we got to make them wait 45 minutes because if they don't, then they won't think that there's any exclusivity to being able to see us. And she's like, what are you talking about? This old school attitude and arrogance,
I think in today's world, rather than the patient, the physician being the God, the patient is the God. Yeah. We are focused towards making sure that your patient is happy, which is good. That's a good thing. But it also kind of intimidates the physicians into perhaps ordering tests or doing things that they wouldn't recommend normally because they want that patient is covered and they don't want a lawsuit.
Yeah, no. And I would say in terms of the arrogance and of what I was speaking to about physicians in general back in the 70s, I would say surgeons were at the top of that list. They saw themselves as the top of the pecking order for sure.
Well, I won't deny the fact that I can be a diva. That's okay. I'm okay with being fabulous. And yes, it takes a lot of confidence to take a knife and cut someone and promise them that they will look a whole lot better when you're done. So absolutely. I will call it confidence rather than arrogance. But yes, arrogance is definitely a thing that happens with surgeons.
What is your greatest achievement? So we talked about some of the challenges that you were facing. So what do you consider right now your biggest achievement? What have you learned from it?
I think being where I am today is my greatest achievement because I am where I dreamed of being 10 years ago. When I dreamed and envisioned and thought about what I could be, it is what is happening right now. And that's something I sometimes don't acknowledge or I'm bitter about because of all the suffering I had to go through to get here. But truly, it's something I'm grateful for to be where I am. Trained as a general surgeon, survived that, in love with my specialty of cosmetic surgery. And I'm not saving any lives. I'm not, doing heart surgery or cancer surgery, but I am saving people's self-esteem and their self-worth. And to me, I think that's extremely valuable. So I'm very happy to be where I am, today.
If you could go back in time and tell the young lady that was in Denmark or Nigeria, you could tell your old self something, what would it be? What is a lesson that you go, now I've picked that up as a tool to deal with life and I put it in my toolbox and I wish I would have had that tool a few years earlier. Is there a lesson that you've learned that you would go back and tell yourself?
That's become my motto, to really focus on taking care of yourself in the midst of everything that's happening around you. And even for my new practice, Ayewah Aesthetics, we tell the patients this is where self-care is everyone's priority. So I would say that, as a younger person, childhood, high school, maybe even college, I did a pretty okay job of taking care of myself. But the moment that stress came in and I felt like I needed to achieve certain things or jump through certain hoops, my self-care went out the window. Taking enough sleep, doing things that I enjoy, all of that went out the window, and it really took its toll on my mental and physical health. And so getting to residency, which was the lowest point of my life, I started going to therapy. It was necessary and needed. And that process taught me that there is nothing wrong with me. I might be in a difficult environment or a toxic environment, but there's nothing wrong with me, and I need to take care of me. And so I would focus on getting a spa day and would be a whole new person after that massage. And I would focus on doing things here and there that made me happy. And that's made all of the difference. Now, as a working professional, I take a day off midweek for me, which is today, Wednesday. And it's so important to keep me going. It's something that I can look forward to. And it's something that I teach other medical students or teach my patients. Like, you need to take care of you, because if you don't watch out for you, who will?
Yeah, it doesn't matter when you're a high achiever, and it doesn't matter if it's medicine or law or business like myself. What you're describing is really important. I remember I had a CEO once tell me, this is the first time I had ever heard this. And he was tough, right? And then it was time to go on vacation. I said, I'm going to take 2 weeks. He said, I'm going to tell you something right now. He says, not only are you not going to take 2 weeks, you're going to take 3 weeks. And if I find out or see that phone that you have in your pocket or your email has been responded to, me and you're going to have a discussion when you come back. And I was a young executive at the time. Not where I ultimately ended. But I thought, that was the first time I started to become aware that I was not doing what you're describing, and that I was just merely, and a lot of people do this, and I did it for too many years. You just push through, right? You just keep grinding. You think this is a function of you not having stamina. Others wouldn't give in so easily. This might be going for 15 or 20 years, right? I mean, it's just going on. And then you get to someone my age, and you can see that I have some grays, and you're sitting there. And I've shared this with people, and I've heard other people describe it as well. Suddenly it hits you, and then there's guilt, right? There's guilt that comes into play. You realize you haven't always been present, been the best husband, been the best father, been the best son, whatever it is. And the fact that you came to that realization, or consciously working towards that, for somebody at my age, I'm impressed by that, and I admire your ability to highlight that, because it is incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah, I find that, not to be so dark, but you must have heard of a lot of cases of physician suicide. It's extremely high tension, no matter what specialty you're in. It's a high tension job. You carry the weight of your own life and the weight of your patients' lives and their problems and their needs and their desires. Yep. And I think that the physician community is doing its best to kind of look into burnout and look into what can be done, but it's such a huge problem and it's a huge topic. And for me, as I said, going through training where you are working 80 hours a week, you have no time for yourself, and you don't have time to function. You have sleep problems. You're not eating properly. You're losing weight or gaining weight. Like, there's something going on that's wrong. And if you don't take care of yourself, you won't survive. It's just true.
No, it is. It's very true. I mean, I can remember the last probably 7 or 8 years of my executive career. If I went to sleep, if I could get to sleep at 11, I was going to be up from 1 to 3 and writing things down, and then go to sleep for an hour and a half and watch the stock market open or whatever, and then get a shower and head off to work, and it's just never a recharge. Who Who is someone that the listeners may not know, but over the course of your journeys, you wish that they would know or that they should know? It could be somebody that's an author. It could be somebody personal in your life.
That's a really good question. I will say that there are a lot of personalities on social media and Instagram that you can look into, and they're inspiring. But for me, I really love social media characters that speak positivity into the world. One that comes to mind is Bosma St. John's, Chief Marketing Officer at Netflix. She's just written a book, which I read and I was inspired by, about living an urgent life. Because she's been through a lot of things in her life, and it's taught her how to appreciate the day-to-day. So I am inspired by a lot of people. Bosma St. John. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at Netflix right now.
Got it.
My most recent read. And again, she is a Ghanaian woman, an African woman, a Black woman. And going beyond her, the next Black woman who is posted all over my apartment is Michelle Obama, who again wrote a book about being positive, about carrying light, about being an example. And it's so true. Like kids, or not even kids, adults, we need to look up to other people. We need to look up to people who've been through real life. And Michelle wrote about going to couples therapy with her husband. Well, hey, we need to talk about it, because it's when you see people living real life, then it encourages you to do the same instead of thinking that things will just fall into place magically.
Yeah, she makes no bones about, being honest and sharing about her frustrations with Barack. I remember reading something recently about her going, almost describing a hatred, right? Like, I do not like this man. I'm here with these babies, and he's off after work to go play basketball, and then off to some, community thing, right? Or whatever it was. But yeah, I think it is nice when people share that. And that was one thing that when I was coming up, you look at, in my world, it was executives, and they're senior and they're experienced, and they present a certain way. But what was fascinating to me is that the older I got and the higher levels I went, the more open and honest they were about sharing the challenges that they've experienced and they were giving. And you're like, oh my goodness, this isn't just me, So tell us a little bit about your role as the CEO of your aesthetics company. Talk to us about that. What is it that you're offering, and how does that look? And
yeah, Ayewah Aesthetics was born out of years of dreaming for myself, discovering self-care, but then also dreaming of a place where people can come and be safe. New York, Manhattan, it's a grind. We're all grinding. And so I always dreamed of having a place where I could offer services for people to indulge and take care of themselves. Being a cosmetic surgeon, I've used Ayewah Aesthetics to be a venue where I can do my consultations, to see my patients, but also in the same space, we will have, post-op care massage, post-op care therapy, weight loss management, nutrition counseling. We will have some facials going on, IV therapy so that people can get rehydrated, and anything else that kind of pops up. But the goal ultimately is people come, feel safe, and spend some time indulging in themselves.
Is it men and women, or is there a percentage break between that?
It's for everyone. Being in cosmetic surgery, 90% of my patients are women, but I take care of men and women. So this is a space where anyone can come and feel safe. And it's in a really amazing location. I am in Manhattan in Midtown on 37th and 8th Avenue. I'm close to Penn Station, Port Authority, Times Square. It's accessible to everyone. So I want, this place to be where people look forward to going. They put it in their calendar. This is going to be something I want to do this week to take care of me.
That's recharge myself a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you specialize in a specific area of the body?
I do. I like to do body work. I'm actually calling myself Dr. Body Adi after the Megan Thee Stallion song, filed a trademark. But I love to do body work. This is breast surgery, tummy surgery, legs, arms, mommy makeovers for people who've lost a lot of weight, taking that skin off and really helping them to feel as good as, to look as good as they feel.
Very good. Very good. And where can they find the website?
My website is ayewahaesthetics.com.
Okay.
And on Instagram, I'm Dr. Martha Ayewah. It's the only one there.
And is there an email if anybody wanted to send you something to your work-related email?
Absolutely. You can email me at martha@ayewahaesthetics.com. And that's
do you want to spell your last name for them?
Yes, I can spell that. It's AYEWAHAESTH. ETICS.com.
What's funny is when I was young, I would win spelling bees, and now that I've been wed to the phone with the autocorrect, I'm sitting there trying to figure out the stupidest words. Right? How do you spell that anymore? I can't remember. Martha, it's been great having you join us and share with us your journey and your experience and what you're doing now. And congratulations with the practice and getting things started up in the big city, the Big Apple, or Manhattan. It's very impressive.
Thank you for having me. This has been really great.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.